Dear Jesus, thank you, Lord, that you have given us so many natural things that we can do. Help us to understand the way that we can support our body, that we might be filled with thy Holy Spirit and be a temple for you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So it's starting to get more interesting. We had talked about calcium and some of the ways it works in the body, and today we start with how we absorb it. If you take the time to look up the word calcium on the internet today, you would find website after website wanting to sell you the perfect calcium supplement. If you read why it is so perfect, it's usually because of claims of high levels of absorption. Some claim that their product is almost near perfect, but there is more to digestion than absorption. If you were taught anything about normal digestion, it would be that food is digested by a process of chemical action, which reduces the food particle size small enough so it can be absorbed through the walls of the intestine into the bloodstream. Unfortunately, that's not the whole story. So just because a substance gets into your blood, that's no assurance that it's going to be used as food energy for your body. So there's a very vital matter that's overlooked by biologic science today, and that happens to be found under the heading of frequency. We're getting more familiar with frequency nowadays. Digestion involves the vital matter of frequency adjustment. Absorption is not the key to utilization of calcium. Frequency is. All mineral energy, including calcium mineral energy, must encounter the proper pH resistance of the digestive enzymes in order for its frequency to be adjusted to our human frequency. So, of course, calcium is a necessary key for the body to maintain a critical frequency adjusting digestive function. So, the pH has to do with that, where we can adjust the frequency of our calcium. So, not one organ, here's the calcium in your liver. Not one organ of the human system next to our brain has more responsibility in the body than the liver. The liver is the organ that's responsible for making all of the primary building and maintenance material for all of the rest of the organs and tissues in our body. Excuse me. If the liver does not start or begin to build the beginnings of these substances sufficiently, then there will be some organ, some gland, or some tissue that will suffer a deficiency eventually. So this shows up in so many different ways in our body with illness. If your liver doesn't start or begin to build the beginning of these substances sufficiently that are needed by the body, then there will be some organ, some gland, or some tissue that will suffer a deficiency eventually. In other words, the eyes, the skin, the heart, the kidneys, the lungs, and so forth, they have to have their basic needs supplied. It starts in the digestion with the proper pH, which stands for potential of hydrogen, first. And it's controlled by the presence of the proper dietary calcium. And then it's continued on further in the liver. If these basic needs are not supplied, then all other tissues will eventually suffer, depending on the extent of that mineral energy lack. Even the very vital digestive enzymes have their beginning in the liver, which is why when you test your saliva, it shows the strength of your liver because the digestive enzymes come from your liver to your saliva for digestion. So when the liver is lacking, then the enzymes for digestion are lacking also. At birth, your liver is not mature. Even though it may be healthy, it will increase in development and function over the next 18 to 22 years until it reaches a climax of development. If the liver were able to receive all that it needed during its development period, then it would have reached its maximum potential. If the liver is not fed well during the period of development, which would include any lack of calcium, and young girls need 7 times, young women need 7 times more calcium than men during their reproductive years. then the individual will start out with a deficit, even from the beginning in adult life, and never be able to catch up completely. So I just might add at this point that there's a great deal of misunderstanding about raw whole foods. It's assumed that the more raw whole foods that one consumes when chronically ill, the better. But unfortunately, that's a big misunderstanding of body chemistry. Raw juices can be extremely valuable used in the right amount and the right strength. But when it comes to raw whole foods, the weaker the liver, the weaker the digestion and enzymes thereof, the less of those should be used. That is let me turn the page here. The weaker the liver, the weaker the digestion, and the more cooked foods a diet should contain. Consider a new baby. You would not feed a new baby or even a young infant raw whole foods other than mother's milk because their liver is not mature enough to produce the enzymes necessary for proper digestion of less processed and more concentrated food. When an adult becomes quite ill over a long period, they lose liver strength, and the liver becomes comparable to an infant's immature liver. This is why some adults in severe states of ill health need all their whole foods well cooked. Cooking is actually a pre-digestion process. Cooking may deactivate some enzymes, yes, but even at that, the basic parts of the deactivated enzyme, such as the mineral components like calcium, they're still in the food, and your body will be able to use it in alternate ways much easier than when it's raw. You may recall hearing that a cooked carrot has twice as much available nutrient as a raw carrot. Well, it's true. Another responsibility that the liver has is in processing waste. During regular metabolic function, cells produce waste products that must be removed and disposed of. The liver is responsible for chemically adjusting the cell waste so that the kidneys can extract it from the blood. If your liver is unable to do this, or if this function is impaired, the body will soon poison itself. In order for the liver to perform both categories of function, it needs 3 primary substances. These primary substances are water, oxygen, and calcium. If any, or water, oxygen, and calcium, if any or all of these are lacking or are below the amounts needed, the liver will be inhibited from functioning at its optimum. Thus, the liver is like a 3-legged stool where a lack in even one of these 3 basic needs, water, oxygen, or calcium, will topple the stool. As the most important mineral in the liver, the absence or lack of calcium assures that basic liver function will be impaired if you have a lack of it. So the next little chapter is titled, is there any questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, these natural doctors. They are saying that people today, they have a liver who just function about 18 to 20%. And therefore they say they should do liver cleanse, several times, because just one liver cleanse won't do it. But if I understand you right, it's maybe more important to think about, there are so many things we have learned the opposite way. Eat mostly raw food because then you get the enzymes, you get more nutrition and so on. But it seems what you are saying that, or this doctor is saying, that we should actually, it's easier for the body to absorb the nutrients when they are cooked. So
Absolutely, yes. And well, we probably won't get to this subject because it's in my textbook, but your body makes its own vitamins if you have all the minerals you need, and you can't destroy minerals in food by cooking. But anyways, continue on. What were you saying? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that was interesting. Did you say that if you have enough minerals, the body will make all the vitamins you need?
Yes.
Okay. She have been eating mostly raw.
Yeah, that's going to be hard on her. And I'll tell you the most powerful thing that you can do, and we'll get to it eventually, maybe not today, but I think it's important enough to mention it today because you could start doing it right away. If you have available raw, fresh lemons, I don't know if you have them in Norway. Can you get lemons?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, at a ratio of 9 to 1, first of all, you have to figure out how much water you should drink a day by taking your weight and dividing by 2. And that's how many ounces of water you should have. And so then with that amount, like say I weigh 140. So I would need 70 ounces of water. And so knowing that's how many ounces of water I need, I would take the ratio of 1 to 9, 1 ounce of fresh lemon juice to 9 ounces of distilled water. And if you have a problem with dropping blood sugar, add a little maple syrup or molasses or agave or something sweet so that you keep your sugar stable. And then start at, like, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, and on the hour, drink 3 or 4 ounces of the lemonade. And then on the half hour, drink 3 or 4 ounces of distilled water, and just do that for 10 hours. That's the most powerful thing you can do for your liver, because it provides your liver with every enzyme it needs to do its function so that it can support you while you're healing. And that can get expensive, buying the lemons for me. I don't know how expensive they are in Norway.
But for how many days are you going to do that?
Well, you do it as long as it makes you feel better. You can't overdo it. So as long as you're healing and it makes you feel better, you can do it. You can take a day off on Sabbath. You can see how you do. You can test your pHs and see if they're staying in range, because the lemon will help you stay more alkaline. And the lemon is the only truly anionic food there is. But anyway, so that's a really powerful thing you do. We'll get to that eventually in the book, and they'll talk about it, but we're not there yet. So the raw food that Sylva's eating, yeah, it's harder on her digestion. If she has cancer, she's probably, her digestion is probably weak. And I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about it, but you can tell when you have a bowel movement if it looks like it's not digested well.
How can you see that?
Well, if it comes out looking like food still, if it comes out like in diarrhea, like it's still chunks of food that's hasn't turned into smooth brown waste matter, It's if it's just chunks of food coming out like a salad shooter.
Okay.
Anyway, you can tell that you need a little help with your digestion, and this lemon water is going to be an amazing help for you.
I do take every morning. I do take 1 tablespoon of lemon and 1 tablespoon of organic olive oil every morning, 5 days a week.
Oh, it sounds like you're really doing some good things. All right, so let's continue on then. I'm sorry, were you finished? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I didn't write down any more comments for for what you have been saying now. I don't know if
Okay.
the others have any, but you can just raise your hand if you want to say something, or just
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so the next thing is that a calcium deficiency can actually cause a calcium excess. And that may sound confusing, but what it causes, I'll say it shortly. It causes the calcium to precipitate into your blood and then cause hardening. And so you have excess calcium plastered everywhere on your vein walls and in your joints and stuff. So we'll read about it now. Calcium has one other aspect in relation to its function in the body that needs to be pointed out. That is, when calcium is deficient in the body, it can make it appear that there is a calcium excess. This actually takes place. The calcium is the vital link in controlling acid and alkaline balance in your body's chemistry. A deficiency in calcium causes the body to misuse the calcium that it does have available. Therefore, the calcium that is available to the body, even though there is an overall deficiency in what the body needs, can be wrongly distributed to the point of actually appearing as if you're getting too much. You see, when there's not enough overall calcium available on a daily basis, the acid-alkaline balance will eventually be thrown off, and this causes the pH of the body fluids, as reflected in substances like urine and saliva, to either drift too high or too low. The body tries to control this change by mobilizing the calcium that is stored in body tissue, like in your bones, your teeth, and your cartilage and muscles. If that does not work, then the mobilized calcium, along with the limited calcium coming in from the diet, will be deposited in the wrong areas, and it will act like, like excess. So that's why calcium deficiency can make calcium appear as if it is excessive in the body. So taking the wrong calcium can contribute to this, because some calciums are actually acid forming. That would be calcium lactate. And if you're acid, that could cause this to happen. There's a note here. Low calcium diets have frequently been recommended for patients with recurring kidney stones. The January 10, 2004 issue of the New England Journal of Medicine reported a study in which patients at risk for kidney stones were given diets low in calcium or with normal calcium levels, and subjects given the higher calcium diets had fewer kidney stones, not more. The incidence of stones was also lowered by low salt intake and reduced dietary protein. So, okay, our next little section here, all calcium is not the same. Some may recall a few years ago reading about a study, one of them of the then 7,000 plus per year articles about findings in calcium research reported in the New England Journal of Medicine. It demonstrated the use of extra calcium reduced the incidence of colon cancer very significantly. The media picked up on the information and everyone was talking about calcium. You know, I'll just say right here that a lot of people have been using baking soda as a way to cure cancer. Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You
Even,
know why
even
it works?
yeah, because it makes it so alkaline.
Yeah, and that's what calcium does. Except that calcium, your body actually needs the calcium. So anyway, I'll continue on here. The spinoff was, although hearing a small bit about the value of calcium, the public never learned how food was designed to be the main source of calcium and other minerals, and that there were different types of calcium important to human health. Most think calcium is just calcium, that all calcium is the same as far as its effect on the body's chemistry. However, all calcium is not the same. Calcium is typed by the related atoms that it carries with it. These extra atoms of other elements cause the calcium to react in the chemistry of the body differently. For example, calcium that has a certain arrangement of carbon and oxygen atoms hooked to it is called calcium carbonate. It's carbon and oxygen. Calcium that has an arrangement of atoms attached to it made up of sulfur and oxygen is called calcium sulfate. Calcium that has hydrogen and oxygen attached to it is referred to as calcium hydroxide. These are 3 examples taken from the 7 basic groups of calcium. So what and how other elements are attached to the calcium will determine the characteristic of the reaction that will take place in human digestion, as well as in plants, animals, and soil. The type or types of calcium needed in humans can only be determined by measuring the acid-alkaline ratio as expressed in a pH test of urine and saliva. The primary data regarding calcium that is received from a pH test is as follows. 1, it reveals the type of calcium needed by the individual, therefore the one which has been lacking in their diet. That's the one you need. 2, the calcium indicated will help change the chemistry of the bowel so that the digestive reactions will be controlled as to the energy release, timing, and frequency adjustment for more efficient uptake of all nutritional elements from the food. Most important, of course, calcium. And of course, you know that the potential of the hydrogen or the ions as they speed through your body determine your rate of aging. And when you're acid, the ions are flying through your body and you're aging rapidly. Calcium compounds will react in one of 3 ways on the basic chemistry of your body. 1, they will influence your body pH more in an alkaline direction. pH goes higher. 2, they will influence your body pH more in an acid direction if you're taking that particular calcium. And then your pH goes lower. 3, they will supply the needed calcium that will maintain a stable, healthy acid-base ratio indicated by the pH, because then your body can store it and use it when you need it. So the next title here, if there are no questions at this point.
Yeah, so you are saying, or this doctor is saying, take less salt, even if it's Himalaya salt or Celtic salt, or?
Well, I think that if I would have a a conductivity meter And then I would know, because I don't know if you remember hearing the story of the young boy that he was just eating salt like crazy and his parents refused to let him have it. He died and there was a malfunction in his body. And so the only way that any of us can know our chemistry is by testing. And you can have, actually, I think there's a conductivity and pH meter, one meter that does both of those things. You can check your salt levels and your saline levels. And because it's an electrolyte, it's important because too much salt can make you feel trembly and racy because of the electric, making your heart pound, and work hard. And there's too much electricity. And so there's a healing rate, and that's in the equation, which at some point I can give you that equation. You can know what that healing rate is for your salt, and you'll know how you're doing. So I think having these little tools is really valuable. You can get them from Pike Agri Labs is where most of Dr. Ream's tools can be found.
I heard, I don't know if it's true, but that to take half a teaspoon of Himalaya salt first thing in the morning is that the kidneys really love that.
Well, I think that we can't make too many general statements if we don't know how it's reacting in your own body.
Okay.
That might work for some people. And he did say that most healing modalities worked between 40 and 60%, which makes sense because everybody's just across the board with their chemistry. Some people are acid, some are alkaline, some are somewhere in between, and there's something might work for somebody for a while. And then they'll feel better. But then when they get balanced, then they'll start to not feel better because they need to do something different. Oftentimes people think, oh, I've got to take such and such. And so they do it for the rest of their lives, when in reality, your body may need something for 2 weeks to a month to get adjusted, and then you're done. We don't need to be taking things forever and ever, piles of things.
Do you know Barbara O'Neill?
Oh, I love her.
So she's taking every time, I don't know if it's every time, but very often, when she drinks water, she takes just a little Celtic salt so that the cells easier absorb the nutrients.
Mm-hmm. Well, that could be good. I mean, I don't know. I'm planning on ordering myself a conductivity meter because I haven't had my lab equipment for a little while, and it's very helpful to know, because I tend to not hold on to salt myself. If you drink a lot of water, you wash your salts out, you wash them down, just like you wash your sugar down. So if you drink too much water, you could actually it would be useful to take a little salt, but I mean, it would be hard for me to say for you. I couldn't prescribe that without knowing your numbers.
So I know that the one person here, she always have too little salt. I mean, natrium, or what you call it. So what would you suggest for her to take this measurement? I mean, she has taken these tablets, these salt tablets, but even then it's difficult to have enough.
Oh, how would she was she testing at the lab?
I think you did that, Sylva, right?
Yes.
Okay, and there.
I
Sorry,
had
go ahead.
I don't know what to say in English, but I took a test, DNA test, and
Okay.
and it says that I have a problem with salt absorption.
Okay. I can look into that a little bit for you, but absorption, a lot of it is based on your mineral balance. And I don't have the answer to that right now at the top of my head. I would have to look into it. I have a couple of textbook and I can ask some questions. There's also an RBTI Facebook group that you can join, and they're always talking about these issues, asking questions, helping each other out, understanding things. It's a great place to ask these questions. And I can ask there and I can research it for you. But just like that little boy, that he just, for some reason, his body just was not uptaking and utilizing salt. And he ended up dying, So I can look into that a little bit for you, Sylva. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so was there anything else or can I go on?
You can go on, please.
Okay. Okay. So calcium in the pH, the number that represents the comparison rate or the ratio between the amount of acids and alkalins in your body's chemistry is called the pH. Without knowing the pH of your body's extracellular fluid, it's impossible to know the type or types of calcium it will need to be fed. In other words, when one is unaware of their body's acid-base ratio, selecting a quote-unquote good calcium, that's a gamble. But when selecting a calcium supplement without knowing the pH of your urine and saliva, there's a very high probability of picking a calcium that will make your pH worse rather than better, simply because of these odds. So without knowing the pH of the body's extracellular fluids, as reflected in the urine and the saliva, selecting a calcium from the types and brands on the shelf becomes a game of chance. The main ingredient in most calcium supplements, especially the less expensive ones, is calcium carbonate. That comes from either ground limestone, ocean coral, or oyster shell. Oyster shell calcium is the poorest of the supplemental forms, and I would avoid it. Ground limestone is better, depending on how fine it is ground, and this is what Tums are made of. Although this calcium supplement is not for everyone, as the value of pH information be considered will show. The recent appearing and promotion of coral calcium is the be-all, end-all, is nothing more than a new marketing hype for another source of plain calcium carbonate. So without an understanding of what pH can tell us about the body's needs for calcium and the type needed, it means that an estimated half or more of consumers buying calcium are getting the wrong calcium for their body's chemistry. But you're planning to make, and I'm going to make some too, some lime water. And this is very absorbable and uptakeable. It's a really amazing thing to learn how to do. And you really actually prodded me into learning how to do it.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting it.
Me too. I have mine here. I'm ready to start doing it. I just have to make sure I'm doing the right thing because Dr. Reams used a little sulfur in his because there was a reaction between the lime and the sulfur in the distilled water. So I have to figure out exactly how much sulfur to put in it. And I don't know if I'll put sulfur salt. I have some sulfur salt. Okay. So here's our next section. Do not buy these types of calcium. Do not buy calcium supplements that have magnesium oxide or carbonate as part of the ingredients. I was at the health food store today to get something for my friend. I could not find her a calcium that did not have magnesium in it. I couldn't get it for her. Magnesium is a very stable mineral in your body, and you can get all you need from your green veggies if you include dark green ones in your diet. Note, magnesium stearate is okay because it is not used as a magnesium source. Dolomite should not be used as a calcium supplement because the calcium in dolomite is not available to your body's chemistry. Dolomite is a naturally occurring substance that is a combination of approximately 55% calcium carbonate and 45% magnesium carbonate. And when dolomite goes into your digestion, the magnesium carbonate is released first. And by the time the magnesium compound is released from the complex, the calcium is too far through the digestion to be picked up. This means the calcium is unavailable to the body, so don't take dolomite. Additionally, do not buy calcium supplements that contain any vitamins mixed in the formula, like vitamin D. Calcium supplements should be just the appropriate calcium all by itself. Some of the Reams formulas calcium contain vegetable source magnesium stearate and silicon dioxide to prevent caking. These are not a problem ingredient. As for vitamins, they should be taken separately so that the amounts can be tailored to the unique body chemistry of the individual requiring them. And next, our section is vitamin C and D. And I don't want to go on and on and on too long. It's not broken into chapters, so you can stop me at any time.
I'm just wondering, so don't take any magnesium supplements, you're saying?
I think it's important if you don't have the ability to check your nitrate and ammonium nitrogen levels through a urine test. You don't know if you're in the healing range. Like say if they're called ureas, if their nitrogens or undigested proteins in there is too high, then they can end up with a heart attack. But at that time, the magnesium is amazing. It's wonderful. You take a little magnesium and your body will dump it all out and bring you back into a healing range. But if you don't, and vegetarians oftentimes don't get too much protein. And we don't get too much to where we need to have a little magnesium to do that for us. We don't have the undigested protein problem that a lot of people have usually, but it takes a couple chemicals to test that. And those have to be handled very carefully. And you need to have clean test tubes and things. And I have a jewelry cleaner that I used for cleaning my little test tubes, but I'm not doing that right now. And I'm thinking I might need to reinvest in some of that. And then you can test and see where you're at. I don't know for sure if a complete blood panel at the doctor would reveal that information, because I try to stay away from the medical establishment. When doctors go on strike, the death toll drops like 50%. So it's good to kind of stay away from Western medicine.
You know what I have started to do? I make my own magnesium. I just take the same amount of water with Epsom salt, and that actually makes it, of course, liquid because of the water. And then I spray that under my feet because there the pores are very high. But are you saying don't do that?
I don't think I would do it. I think I would try to stay away from magnesium if you're a vegetarian. I think I would. If you're eating greens, are you eating greens?
Sure.
Okay. Then you're getting all the magnesium you need. It's pretty stable. Do you know it's a nitrogen stealer? If of course, the agriculture industry knows this, they know this. And so they put all these things together that include magnesium, and then your plants don't have enough nitrogen. So you have to go back and buy some nitrogen from them in some form. And so they can sell you more product, but it's a nitrogen stealer. Your leaves will end up getting chlorosis, and it's also a nitrogen stealer for us. And if your nitrogen isn't high enough to be in the healing level, then you're just going to be struggling and not getting well and going, what is wrong? Because of the magnesium. So I wouldn't do it, but I'm not telling you what to do. It has to be a personal, decision. Yeah, try for a week or two without it and see if you notice any difference.
Sure. And then you suggest 50,000, I don't know if it's milligrams with vitamin D.
Oh, of course, go according to the chart. Let me look at your chart here. I've got it in this book. Let me get your chart in front of me. Okay. 50,000. Okay. If your urine pH is 5.5 or lower, then you could take 50,000 units of vitamin D1 every 2 days because it's very alkaline forming, until your pH comes into range. But that would be part of this whole program, because at the same time you would be taking some lime water and some calcium citrate and calcium gluconate, which will be like eggshells. And onion soup was the only neutral form of vitamin C there is. And if you're that acid, you should not be taking vitamin C. You need vitamin C, but if you make onion soup and drink a little bit of that every day, you will get all the vitamin C you need without making yourself acid. Anyways, but we'll get to that later on. There's, I think, a recipe for that.
So we need to take vitamin K.
There's vitamin K in your greens. Your greens include vitamin K as well as calcium and all kinds of things. But if you want to take vitamin K, that's great.
Okay, but you don't need to.
I think if you're, when I had my hip replaced, that was before I realized I probably didn't have to do it, but I did it. And they told me afterwards I had to take blood thinners So I used, I didn't take their blood thinners. I used some herbs that I had that were blood thinning. And they told me you can't have any greens because that has too much vitamin K in it. That'll thicken your blood.
Right.
So, you've got, greens. The Lord knew what we needed, and He
Right.
gave it to us.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. So vitamin C and D. See also the section of vitamin C on page 41, it says here. So maybe later we'll get to that. They're very important vitamins for working with your body's pH and calcium balance. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation circulating about them also. One example of this misinformation states that all humans need mega huge doses of vitamin C to have good health. This assumption is totally incorrect. Vitamin C is a strong acid reacting substance. If someone takes mega doses of a strong acid substance who is strongly acid already, as shown by their urine and saliva pH numbers, it would be like adding fuel to the fire. It would be very toxic to them. On the other hand, if an individual's pH numbers show strongly alkaline, then vitamin C would benefit their chemistry tremendously. However, even then, one must go by the pH numbers to determine how much vitamin C can be included in their mineral program. Now, that's assuming that you're following his program. If you're following his program, it's good to do it the way he says, then it works. If you're doing some other thing, then it might be a different situation for yourself, But if you're trying to keep your pHs in the right place, because your liver ionizes nutrition and waste, that means that it turns it into gases, and those go up into the blood and then get delivered where they need to go. But if your liver doesn't have what it needs, then it just passes off as gas and you get a little gas.
Right.
By the way, if there is any vitamin C that is sold under the pretense of being neutral or buffered, don't believe it. There's only one form of vitamin C that's truly neutral, and it comes the way nature makes it in onions. Yes, fresh onion soup contains a form of neutral or non-acid vitamin C. When you cannot take acid forms of vitamin C because your pH is too acid, according to the chart, make yourself fresh onion soup 2 or 3 times a week. There's a recipe on page 42. The best variety of onions to make the soup is scallions, also known as green onions. You cook 1 pound of those fresh chopped green onions in 1 quart of distilled water. Cook till they're transparent. The vitamin C is water soluble, so it will be in the water. You can put the onion pulp in the compost unless you want to eat it. So consume this liquid twice a week at least, and you can use it for making other soups and broths. So another example of misinformation states that vitamin D in large doses can be toxic. The problem with this statement is that it leads to presumption. Vitamin D is the opposite of vitamin C in its reaction in body chemistry. This means that it is used as an alkalizing agent to move the pH numbers up the scale away from acid. Therefore, vitamin D is valuable in helping the right calcium to eliminate acid pH numbers. So it helps the right calcium. However, vitamin D has a potential to be toxic if it's used in a body that's already too alkaline, just like vitamin C would be toxic to a body that's too acid. I'm sorry, were you saying something?
No.
Okay. Vitamin D is a catalyst for calcium uptake. This means, among other things, that relatively small doses are required to get the necessary reaction. Therefore, when you see by your pH numbers that 5,000 units or 50,000 units of vitamin D3 are recommended, it's important to understand what that number means. Units are not equal to milligrams. If you were to be showing a need for 50,000 units of vitamin D3, that would be equivalent to 1.25 milligrams of actual D3. Cod liver oil is another source of vitamin D. Although it's a very weak source, it's great for children and many senior citizens. Cod liver oil has the benefit of containing what are called cofactors. These enhance the utilization of vitamin D. They could be compared to the benefits of bioflavonoids as cofactors of vitamin C utilization. So anytime the urine pH is below 6.2, you will see noted on your chart that cod liver oil is recommended along with vitamin D. Refer to the chart for suggested dosages and also see section on cod liver oil on page 44. So remember, your pH numbers are the key to knowing what your body needs and mineral nutrients, especially calcium. The ideal pH range that you should be seeking, which maintains for optimum calcium and mineral uptake along with proper frequency adjustment, is 6.3 to 6.5 or 6.2 to 6.6 on the outside of both urine and saliva. So you think we've done enough? I don't want to overload anyone.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you.